Hola, clase. Hoy vamos a hablar sobre las preposiciones por y para. Necesitamos saber la diferencia entre por y para porque ellos son preposiciones muy importantes en español. The general definition for both of these Spanish prepositions is for. I'll write that here for you. So they generally both mean for. But as we study them, you're going to see that they can also mean around, by, through, and to. So let's begin. Here's the first difference between por and para. When it comes to talking about locations, we will use the preposition por when we want to talk about places we go through or by. So when we use por in this way, we are giving the impression that the location we are talking about is not our final destination. Here's some examples. El bus pasa por el centro de la ciudad. So this is being translated as the bus passes through the center of the city. So the center of the city is not our final destination. We're just going through it or by it, perhaps. Necesito pasar por la biblioteca hoy. I need to pass by or to stop by the library today. So we're just going to go by it. Maybe on our way home. Home's our final destination, but we're just going to stop by it or pass through it. Ellos pasaron por México en su viaje. They passed through Mexico on their trip. So they were headed somewhere else, but while they were headed there, they passed through Mexico or they passed by Mexico. It wasn't their final destination. We will also use the preposition por when we want to use the English preposition around or over. And that indicates just a general location. So here's some examples. No hay nada que hacer por aquí. So there's nothing to do around here. Elena está por allí. Elena is over there, or Elena is around there. Viajaron por Europa. They traveled around Europe. So they weren't just in one spot. Europe wasn't even necessarily their final destination. It was their general destination. So they were traveling all around Europe. On the other hand, the preposition para is used when we're expressing our final destination, the actual goal of our trip. So here's a couple examples. José va para España este verano. So José goes to Spain this summer. Ellos salieron para la escuela temprano. They left for the school early. So again, in these two examples, Spain and the school are the final destination. That's the goal of Jose. That's the goal of ellos. That's where they were headed, and they were probably going to spend a little while they were there. Last one, para dónde vas? Just another way that you can ask, where are you going? You're just asking, like, what's your destination? Here's the second difference between por and para. In this case, por and para get translated as for, but they have slightly different meanings. We use por when we are implying that an exchange took place. So if we exchange places with someone and do something on their behalf, like instead of them, we will use the preposition por. Here's some examples. Lave los platos por mamá. So I washed the dishes for mother or in exchange for mother. In other words, she was supposed to wash the dishes, but I washed them in her place. Ellos fueron a la reunión por mí. So they went to the meeting for me. I was supposed to go, but they went in my place. They went in exchange for me. Elena trabajó por Ana ayer. Elena worked for Anna yesterday. Anna was supposed to work, but instead Elena worked in exchange for her and she took her place. We can also exchange one thing for another thing. So people can exchange places, but then we can also exchange something for something else. The first example, compré la chaqueta de cuero por $150. So I bought the jacket, the leather jacket, for $150. I'm exchanging my $150 for a leather jacket. Te doy mi manzana por tu granola bar. So I give you my apple for your granola bar. We're exchanging an apple for a granola bar. Maybe that's the fair exchange, maybe not. Para, on the other hand, is used when we are talking about who the recipient of our kind action or gift was or is. So here's some examples when an action is done for someone as a gift. So it's not necessarily that you did this action in their place. You just went out and did this thing for them. So busco un abrigo para mi hijo. I looked for a coat for my son. Mama hizo sándwiches para todos. Mother made sandwiches for everyone. These are just kind things that we did for someone. We want to express who the recipient was of that kind action. And so we say para mi hijo, para todos. It was for those people. You can also then use para when you're giving something to someone. So when you want to tell who something is for. Estas flores son para ti. These flowers are for you. They're not, I'm not talking about an exchange here. I'm just giving a gift to you. La tarea es para la profesora. The homework is for the professor. So you are the recipient of the flowers. The professor is the recipient of the homework. And that's when we want to use para. One more thing, I do just want to point out that you as the speaker can decide whether you use por or para in these types of sentences, depending on what you want to communicate to the people who are listening to you. So I'm just going to take that first example there. Lave los platos por mama. I washed the dishes in exchange for mother. If I use por mama, I'm saying that I did it in exchange for her. But if I want to say lave los platos para mama, now I'm just saying I washed the dishes for her, like as a gift. She is just the recipient and I did it for her. So there's just a slight change in meaning. Did I do it in her place? Like she was supposed to do it and I did it instead? Or was I doing it for her as a gift? The third difference between por and para deals with time. We use por when we want to talk about how long something lasts or the duration of an event. So for example, vamos a la escuela por 7 horas al día. So we go to the school for 7 hours each day. Fueron a California por 3 semanas. They went to California for 3 weeks. Hablamos por una hora anoche. We talked for an hour last night. So all of these, por means for, but we use it whenever we're talking about duration of time. Para, on the other hand, it still means for, but we want to use it when we're talking about when something is due. So a future deadline. For example, es importante hacer la tarea para mañana. It's important to do the homework for tomorrow. Necesitan un abrigo nuevo para el invierno. They need a new coat for winter. Hay que terminar el proyecto para el lunes. You must finish the project for Monday. The last difference between por and par is a little tricky. Por is used to express the cause of something. The backwards arrow that's on the screen here helps remind us that we are looking for the reason behind why something happened. So we're kind of like looking into the past before an event happened, or we're looking for a reason that led to something happening. So some examples: sacó una mala nota por no estudiar. So he or she got a bad note because they didn't study. No pudimos acampar por la lluvia. So we couldn't camp because of the rain. No fueron al cine por falta de dinero. They didn't go to the theater for a lack of money. Now, you could actually translate these all as for, and when my friends from Honduras speak, a lot of times they won't use because if you're going to use because, you'd usually use porque, right? And you're just using por here, which is what you're supposed to use. So, sacó una mala nota por no estudiar. He got a bad grade for not studying. So a lot of them, if you asked a student, why did you get a bad grade? For not studying, teacher. Why weren't you able to go camping? For the rain. Or why couldn't you go to the theater? For not having any money. And so that really is probably like a better translation, although that sounds weird in English. So we usually translate por in this case as because instead of for. Para, on the other hand, is used to express the purpose for which something is done. So the forward arrow on this screen here reminds us that we are looking ahead to explain what the desired outcome was or is. Why did we do it? We did it for, or we did it in order to meet some goal or purpose. So here's some examples. Estudiamos para sacar buenas notas. We study for getting good grades, or we study in order to get good grades. We study so that we can get good grades. Trabajan para ganar dinero. They work for gaining money. They work in order to gain money. Ellas salen para comprar ropa nueva. They go out for buying new clothes. They go out so that they can buy new clothes. Their purpose for going out is to buy new clothes. So that's like their final destination. That's their goal. That's their purpose. And that's why we use para. Now, I have to tell you that there are some situations where we can only use the preposition por. So in the case of transportation, when we want to express the way that we got somewhere, the means by which we got from one place to another, we always have to use the preposición por. For example, voy a Florida por carro. So I went to Florida by car. So por in this case gets translated into English as the preposition by. El año pasado fui por avión. Last year, I went by plane. Nunca he ido por tren. I have never gone by train. We also use por, we have to use por when we're talking about the means by which we communicate with people. So, hablo con mi amigo por teléfono. I talk with my friend by telephone. Ella envió un mensaje por email. She sent a message by email. So you can only use por when you're expressing the means by which you got somewhere, transportation, or the means by which you communicated with someone. Now, just like there are some situations where you can only use the preposition por, there's also situations where you can only use the preposition para. So one of those situations is when you're talking about opinion. If you want to express your opinion or the opinion of someone else, you want to say to me or like for me, then you're going to use para. For example, para mí, el poliéster es muy incómodo. So for me or to me, polyester is very uncomfortable. Para Alex, Julia Roberts es una buena actriz. So for Alex, Julia Roberts is a good actress, or to Alex, she's a good actress. You also have to use para whenever you're comparing or contrasting. So an example would be like, para modelo, ella no es muy guapa. So for a model, she isn't that good looking. Para deportista, no juega muy bien. So for an athlete, they don't play very well. Y por último, here are some common expressions with por. These are just expressions that you memorize and you learn and you find out that you use por for them. So por aquí means around here. Por desgracia, unfortunately. Por ejemplo, you've heard that before. For example, por eso, therefore, or for that reason. Por favor, please. Por fin, at last or finally, and por supuesto, of course. That's all I have for you. I will see you in class. Adios.